Welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents, the podcast by BrightHaven Caregiver Academy. I'm Gail Pope.
And I'm Karen Wylie. And together we're here to support you in navigating life with your aging or ill pets. We know how deeply you care for your beloved companions, and we're here to offer guidance, understanding, and resources for this meaningful journey.
Each episode, we'll explore topics that address the daily challenges, emotional realities, and choices you face as a pet parent, helping you and your pets find peace, comfort, and joy. Whether it's making sense of a new diagnosis, adjusting to changing needs, or simply seeking a place to feel understood, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, and welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. I'm Karen Wylie here with Gail Pope, and we want to continue our conversation about the holistic methods that BrightHaven began implementing. And yesterday, Gail, you mentioned that Vicki was instrumental in so many of the new methods that you were considering, and that one of the things that she did, she was an animal communicator, right?
That's correct. Yes, oh my goodness. Yes, she was my first introduction to the world of spooky, I guess you'd call it.
There could be people listening to this who aren't familiar with what animal communicators do.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. And I guess perhaps we all look at it a little bit differently. For me, an animal communicator basically does just that. They are able to energetically connect with the animal in question. The animal communicators I've worked with have all been very different, and some actually have a wonderful, like a double function of medical intuition. And they can actually talk to the animal, but at the same time, they can actually scan the body, looking within to see where there are irregularities or where there's illness that needs
Oh,
attention,
wow.
which is absolutely fascinating.
And so what are some of the experiences you had with Vicki using that ability? And how did it affect the care you gave some of your animals?
Ooh, well, actually, my first real experience with communication is actually quite a funny story. The sanctuary had, as you would imagine, we had a lot of cats, and we had litter boxes, as one would in pretty much every room. We had male cats, we had female cats, we had old cats and sick cats. So we had to be a little creative in our offerings, and I thought we were doing really, really well. But at one point, not long after Vicki had actually started volunteering for us, I was getting to the end of my rope. Housekeeping is difficult when you're doing the job of sanctuary, but when it comes to wet towels that have been on a couch because somebody might pee on it, luckily with incontinence pads underneath, but it's still lots of laundry and it's lots of heartache and trying to figure out who's peeing here and are they ill or is this a behavior? And then, of course, male cats like to mark their territories.
Yes, they do.
On the other hand, living with male cats in multiple amounts in your house, where they all want to have the same territory, doesn't bode for a very pleasant atmosphere. So it was we were at a little bit of a frustrating time.
Sure.
And so I think it was not really understanding at that time what animal communication was. I guess probably partly as a joke, I said to Vicki, would you be open to talking to the animals and trying to solve our peeing problem? That would be really great. Not actually expecting that anything major would happen. So the first thing that made me laugh was that she put her coat on. And I said, well, where are you going? She said, well, I'm going home. I do much better long distance. Oh, I thought, this is crazy. She said, seriously, I can connect with the animals. And we had a group of, actually, I think there were 5 male cats, and we'd nicknamed them the Rat Pack. That's a story for another day.
Okay.
She said, I think probably the best thing I can do is I'll connect with the Rat Pack and we'll see what they have to say about this. So she did, and she telephoned me and she said, okay, I've talked to the cats, and I think we've got some really good ideas here. I said, oh yes, okay, fine. She said, well, okay, let's start with the female cats. So first of all, they want you to take all the covers and things, all the towels away. They don't want those anymore. It isn't about those, it's about your litter boxes. So that starts with the litter itself. They don't like it. It's horrible. They don't even like stepping in it. They want a different litter. Okay. And she said, and then some of the older cats have expressed a desire that for the female cats, she said, you already have some low-sided litter boxes, so you need to go even lower for some and just spread a towel with an incontinence pad, put that on the floor by the litter box. They know what it's there for if they can't climb in. So now you've got floor level, you've got slightly raised, and then you've got your bigger ones. But then she switched to the men and she said, they're a little more tricky, but I think we've got it figured out. They all have their own territory. And of course, this is where your problem's coming. However, they have agreed that word will be spread amongst all the males, that everybody will choose their own places, and it will all be outside. There may be places where one's going to pee on top of another one's because that's kind of what they do, but they will not come in the house. The house will be clean. Yeah, that was the end. It's like, yes, absolutely great, fabulous. Thank you, Vicki. And she was right. They did it. And they did it very quickly in a matter of days. The house smelt beautiful. The cats were using the various different types of litter boxes. I'd actually got new litter, which again, of course, it was a holistic. It wasn't the old clay litter. It was a proper, nice modern litter, and they loved it. And that's when I stopped having to cover furniture, and I never ever changed from that.
Wow. Well, there's the validity. I mean, any question, I guess, a skeptic would have about whether this animal communication is for real, you actually saw behavioral change
Oh, absolutely.
among so many of them. It's like there was a consensus. They did agree to do things differently, and then you did things differently. You did the purchases of the product that they were comfortable with, that they wanted to change a little. You did it, and wow, that is amazing. What a great
It really
story.
was. It was an incredible experience, and it was something, I went in completely disbelieving, and there was absolutely no way that this woman could do anything about this huge problem. And in a matter of days, it was solved, and the animals were happy. We were happy. The atmosphere in the house changed. It was just, it really was sensational.
And you didn't have to worry about it again. So that does kind of mean that the residents, as new members of the sanctuary would arrive, they were told the rules.
Well,
They
they must
must
have
have
been.
been communicating. Yeah, they must have been communicating with one another.
They
If
must have been, because I
yeah,
wasn't having interview lectures about litter with them. So yes, it worked going forward. It
yeah,
worked. I mean, there were a
it
few
wasn't.
accidents here and there,
Well,
particularly with
sure,
the older, less
of
steady.
course.
But for
Right.
the most part, we never had a problem. It really was making sure that I was observant enough to tell when an old lady, or an old man sometimes, but mostly it was the ladies, when they needed a flat on the floor towel toilet,
Mhm.
because they would use the lower sided, and we made sure to have really low sides so they were easy to get
Right.
into. But once they were hesitant about that, and I was observant enough, then I would create a towel toilet on the floor,
Right. Right.
and it would work. It would work. And I still recommend it to people now, and they're astonished because it does work and it makes sense, actually. So
It's it's psychic communication that happens with animals. You know, most of us accept that there's psychic communication between
Yes,
humans.
yeah,
So why not between a human and the pets?
yeah,
Makes perfect sense to
absolutely.
me.
It was wonderful. Absolutely an amazing lesson. Amazing.
Was Vicki the only animal communicator you worked with, or do you have another story that you could tell us?
Well, actually, yes, Vicky was the only animal communicator. I'm just trying to think. I think here and there we crossed paths with others, but until Vicky's death, which was maybe 10 years or so along, Vicky pretty much was always available for whatever we needed, whenever there was a problem. Um, I think my biggest memory of something that was a really huge event at BrightHaven, we brought a dog called Hope in. She was young. She had a very long story, which I will not tell now because it would take forever. But she was born deaf and blind, and she was born with a heart defect that basically her heart was literally rammed the wrong way and it wasn't pumping properly. And we ended up taking her from the East Coast. She came to live with us, and she was not an easy girl. She was brain damaged somewhat too. And I took her to a specialty hospital to actually have her evaluated to see if there was anything we could do. Or, I mean, we took her as a hospice case, but we just needed to do some diagnostics and figure out whether there was anything here that could be dealt with. And it was then that I met some wonderfully talented veterinarians, absolutely amazing. They did all sorts of testing, and the cardiologist was incredible. She did some wonderful work. But then the surgeon was the most delightful lady. She's still practicing these days. And she said to me, okay, so having discovered what's going on to a greater extent, this is probably, well, actually, she started by being really negative. This is a surgery that it's impossible. It's just not going to be possible to do it. Because in order to do it, and then she gave me this long, detailed explanation about how the different vessels would have to be basically cut and literally turned from one side of the heart to the other. And it just simply isn't, it's just not possible. And then she stopped and she looked at me and she said, but I think I could do it. And I said, you think you could do this? She said, it has not been done before. It would be a first time thing. And Hope could die on the table. She could die afterwards. We just don't know. So if you did decide you wanted to try it, it would be a huge, huge risk. I have to be honest. So I said, okay. She said, why don't you just go away and think about it? She doesn't have much of a life, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a very long one. So, just think about it. So I did. And I called Vicki and I said, could you possibly speak to Hope? And, I don't know if she understands enough or can join the conversation, but she said, yes, okay. And then she called me back and she said, it's a go. She wants to do it. I said, she wants the surgery? She said, yes. She was very, very clear. She understands what could happen, but she said it won't. The surgery will be successful. Basically, she has come to you to do this, to prove what can be done and to help people, basically to help animals, so that there's an understanding built here. So we went into it. We did it. Again, a lovely, delightful story, but the bottom line is it worked, and she lived on. She was an amazing little girl who she taught us and so many other people lessons. Her survival, her story was very moving. And then when you meet a being who is deaf and blind,
Right.
and you spend some time with them, there's so much to learn from them. There's so much to learn from their humility, their acceptance, how they live in their moment, how they interact with other beings. So yes, Hope really was a wonderful story. Without Vicki speaking to her, I doubt I would have actually had the courage to go ahead and do that.
Well, that must have been quite a decision. I mean, that really is, and anything that requires us to be making that life or death decision, knowing
Yes,
that the odds are not great, the risk is high, um, and then to make the decision to go forward. But how
yes.
much longer did she live after the operation?
Well, I could look in my records and tell you, but
Yes, I know you probably could.
and I'd be guessing. I would say she probably lived another 5 or 6 years.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was a good life, and it may have
Yeah,
been
yeah.
in that. Another time I will look that up and I will tell you.
Okay. Well, I remember seeing the pictures of her and the information you'd shared about her. That's an amazing story. I didn't remember hearing that one before. Really amazing. Animal communication is something that just about everyone can learn a little bit about.
I
It's like
think so. I think you're absolutely right. One of the important things I think that I've learned with communication as well as medical intuition is that it can be used to help the veterinarian,
yes,
because modern diagnostics are wonderful and they give you generally the picture you want, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's something that can't be seen, that isn't understood. And very often a communicator can actually find out what that is.
right,
Or they can actually body scan the body and say, well, there's something going on here with the kidneys. Despite having diagnostics, we wanted that deeper understanding of who this animal is. What do they want?
right,
How does their partnership with us work? Because that all comes into play with a holistic approach. So
right,
that was really important in that respect, and it still is very much, I think, for people, for those that are open, obviously, but it can be
right.
such a huge help.
Well, I believe we all have intuition, and
Yes.
if we lean into it, we can learn to do it better and better. It's a skill like anything else. If you invest time in developing it, you might be surprised what you can do. You didn't just rely on animal communicators to convey to you the animal's perspective. You always try to find what the pet's perspective is about their life and what they want. Uh,
Right.
you've really done it both ways, and that's something that I think we're going to be talking about many, many times is what pet parents can do to incorporate the perspective of their pet has about their own life and care. We need to find out what the pet parent wants to do for their animal, and in many occasions, what the veterinarian is recommending. But we need to find out what the pet wants as well. So it sounds like that became a really important part
Yes.
of everything you did.
Well, yes, it's teamwork, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
teamwork. And again, it comes back to the understanding that our animals come into this world to help us, to be with us, to love us, to care for us. And in turn, that's why we're here for them. And so it's just a beautiful relationship. So the more we can understand about them, and you're right, I think we all have the gift of communication. We just somehow, some of us block it. Some of us don't believe we can do it. I think we all have a gut feeling here and a gut feeling there, or a knowing, I think he needs to go outside to the potty.
Right.
It can be that simple, and we dismiss it as, oh, he just looked at me out, with a
Yeah.
strange look on his
Yeah.
face. But there's so much I think we just don't.
Right.
Just don't believe or trust ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is learning to trust ourselves and those feelings we have. But thank you. And we thank you for being with us today. And we hope you'll join us again for Peace of Mind for Pet Parents when we continue to explore the issues that are at the heart of loving all of our babies. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That was wonderful. Thank you. Until soon.
Thank you for joining us on Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. We hope today's episode has offered you support and insight as you care for your aging or ill pets.
Remember, it's not just about the end, it's about living well at every stage of life. To continue your journey with us, explore more resources at BrightHaven Caregiver Academy's website, brightpathforpets.com, where you'll find guides, assessments, and a caring community of pet parents like you.
Until next time, may you and your pets find comfort, connection, and peace in every moment. Take care.